Hi folks, welcome back. This is part 2 of how to make this Reader's Digest book. So last time we gutted the book, we put in the paper, this is fabric, we put in the fabric inside the cover, and then you guys saw me fuss with cutting the small insert that goes into the spine, like, let's see here, this guy here, and this is what the page actually attaches to. So you attach the page to this, and then this gets attached to the book. So, all right, let's go on with what we're doing here. All right, so this is completely dry. Last time as soon as I got done stenciling on this crosshatch design here, which is actually a pineapple, it looked a little bit shiny, but now it doesn't anymore, but I'm still okay with that. And I thought about going back over this because you can see the lines through here and you can see the white that was here originally, but I actually kind of like it, so I'm going to leave it. All right, so the next thing that you're going to want to do after you get to this point is you're going to want to get some pages. Now, these are hand-dyed paper. These were dyed with turmeric and coffee. And I kind of scrunched these up while I'm in the dyeing process, so the textures and the lines and the differences in the colors that you see here are actually still fairly textured. Now, I did iron them down with a real iron, which is pretty much the only time that I iron anymore, and that I'm happy with that. So these are actually still highly textured, and I don't know if the camera actually picks up on that, but that's what I've chosen. And I did go ahead and cut, excuse me for reaching, 2 of the 3 signatures to fit, but I'll go ahead just to kind of speed things up, but I will show you exactly how I did this. So how many pages? These papers are, I wouldn't say very flat, so I did 12, and I think that that is a fairly good amount. That's the same amount and actually the same batch of paper, except for these were just coffee dyed paper in here. These ones are still highly textured as well, and you can kind of hear the pages themselves crinkle. And I used 12 pages per signature here, 3 signatures. All right, so I'm going to do the same over here. All right, so let me move our book temporarily off to the side. All right, so I'm just going to stack the papers up and then simply fold them in half. I'm going to try to make it so that the top and bottom are fairly even. Now when I fold this, some of the papers are going to stick out of the middle. And when I say stick out of the middle, let me crease this down just a little bit first. When I say stick out of the middle, you see it's not even on this edge. It's because the papers that are now in the middle of the signatures are being pushed out by the other papers. And it doesn't seem like it would be that much to go from here to here, but it does end up pushing it out quite a bit, but it's going to be okay because we're just going to cut it off flush anyway. Alright, so what I'm going to do now is I'm going to come in with my bone folder and give this I'm going to give this a better crease, and I will do this on both sides. And when I'm creasing this down, I'm creasing not only the very edge of the paper here, I guess I should turn a little bit more straight, not only the edge of the paper here, but I also want to get the actual center of the signature as well. So I'm pressing pretty much from this edge to probably 1/4 of an inch in, just to get all the paper to lay down nicely. And I am putting a fair amount of pressure on here. Alright, that's fairly well creased. Now what I'm going to do is I'm just going to take my fingertips. I've got my hand holding the back of the signature. I've got my fingertips and I'm just kind of pressing the signatures in together. So I'm trying to get the middle of the signature as far to the what's going to be the spine as I can. The spine of the signature. Is that even a thing? I don't know. Alright. So I'm going to clip this just for a second, like that, while I talk about how to figure out your measurements. So the way that I figured this out is I put our false spine, our new spine, in here that's going to be attached to it, And this is actually going to be fairly difficult to do. And then I took a ruler, and I'm using a very, very large, do I have a smaller one of this that would actually fit? Yeah. This might be, well, whatever. This is another quilting ruler. But what I want to do is I want to find a ruler where the one portion where it starts. There, can you see that? Nope. How about this? Okay. Where it starts, like the edge is at 1, because if you look at this ruler, where's the start? Right here. It doesn't start at 1, it starts a little bit before it. So that might throw your measurements off. So I've got the spine in here, and now what I want it to do is when I get the pages in here, I would like for the pages to extend all the way to the edge of this flypaper. So I need to find the distance when the book's closed between here and here. Now the way I measured it, let me see if I can measure it like this. Because actually what I did was I did it like this, and then I held my ruler up here, but you're not going to be able to see that. Let me see if I can get it to do this and just kind of hold that flush. Alright, move papers. Alright, let's see here. Let's use the other end so I don't have to think too hard. Alright, so this is 1 down here. So I'm measuring, and I'm trying to keep this flat. Again, normally this part, the spine, move it up, the spine would be on the table, and then I would just look directly at it. But that's going to be very, very hard to actually capture on camera. So I want to know the distance between here and then the edge of this paper here. So that looks like about 5 1/4 to me, and that's what I cut my other papers at. So I'm going to go 5 1/4, and then I want to know the distance on this fly paper, I guess, or the inside of the cover, from here to here. So I don't have to hold this anymore. All right, so I'm just going to measure from the top to the bottom, and that's going to give me about 7 1/4 as well. So I'm going to cut it 5 1/4 wide and 7 1/4 tall, it being the papers. Okay, so let's, whoa, it's fine, let's do that now. Alright, I do have quite a bit of quilting things at my disposal, so that's what I like to use because I already have it anyway. You could definitely use just any metal ruler, or I guess you could use one of these plastic rulers here, but I found that these plastics aren't very thick, so when I'm using my craft knife in them, I have a tendency to cut into them, which, I mean, it's fine. These are like $3 for $1.25 at the dollar store, but still, it's not going to give you a nice cut on your paper. So that's why I use this instead. And like I said, I've seen a lot of people using metal rulers as well, but this is what I have, and that's what I use. Okay, so with my papers, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut the top and the bottom first before I cut the sides. So now, as you can see here, my paper isn't laying completely straight on really either side. So I'm going to actually make 3 cuts on this. I'm going to do a cut here, and then my final cut's going to be this way. So yes, in theory, you could only make 2 cuts, but I feel like I need to make 3. Alright, so I'm just going to kind of line this up, and basically I just want a straight edge. So the reason why I'm doing the height before I do the width is this, I'm using the crease line as my straight edge, and that's what I'm placing on the line on my cutting mat, which isn't quite straight enough for what I'm doing. Not straight enough, but long enough. I usually use a bigger one, but it's kind of a pain to move, so let me just figure out if I can do this. Is that straight? Yeah, okay. Alright, so now I'm just going to take this guy and line it. You know what? I need to have my bigger one. Hang on. I'm back! So here's my very well-loved cutting mat. This thing has been around for quite a while, but it's still kicking. Alright, so I was putting, yep, still in frame. I need to move this. Okay. So as I was saying, what I like to do is I like to line up the spine of the signature on one of the lines because I know that this is going to be my straight line. So this is basically the line that I'm going to work off in. And again, I am using a quilting ruler to do this because I have it and I like it. And it works well for me. But again, you can use anything. The thing that I like about the quilting ruler is, let me just slide this over so I get a good cut. The thing I like about the quilting ruler is that it helps me make sure that I get a straight cut because I have a very long area that I can make sure that the top and bottom are straight. The top and bottom of my ruler are straight, and I can line it up better. At least I feel like I can. All right, now this might be a little bit awkward because I am on an awkward angle. So what I want to do is I want to press down really hard on this, and then I'm going to take my craft knife and I'm just going to come in, and actually I'm not even pressing down very hard. I'm just going to make several cuts on here to get through, well, now 24 pieces of paper because it was 12, and then we folded it in half, so now it's 24. Getting down to it. Now I usually don't save these small pieces like this because this is probably 3/8 of an inch, but I am planning on making some handmade paper here shortly. That came off very nice. So I'll save these little pieces, and I think those should work well in a blender. Okay, so now that I got that one done, now here's where I'm going to measure. So first off, I'm going to try to make sure that I line up, yep, you can see, one on, it doesn't matter which one, on a horizontal line. And then since I just made this very nice cut on the left hand side, I'm going to make sure that I line up on the vertical line that goes this way. And if I am a little bit off, I'm just going to kind of split the difference and roll with it. Okay, so I need to have 7 1/4. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 1/4. So right here, I need to make sure that I find the quarter mark on here. Okay, and the quarter mark on here is going to be this first line here. And again, the hardest part of this is just holding it down so it doesn't move once you get it positioned. So there's my quarter line mark. I'm straight way up at the top, that's way off screen, and I'm straight at the bottom that's almost off screen or maybe off screen, and I'm just going to do the same thing. I haven't made handmade paper in a while. I'm actually pretty excited about it. Back in the day, I say back in the day, it was probably 20, 30 years ago. In my county, they brought this art truck out to the local park, and you could go into the art truck and they had all kinds of different things, and one of the things that they had in there was paper making, and I just thought that was the coolest thing. Am I off? Nope, not yet. Still not yet. And they had other cool things to add to the paper, like you could dye the paper and put, I think, glitter in the paper, and I don't know. It was just really cool to me. Alright, so here we go. We've got 7 1/4 going this way. So now I'm going to turn it again so that I'm this way. I'm just going to scoot it over a little bit. And the reason why I'm scooting so far to the right is because my my camera is attached, like right here, and that's kind of in my way. So I said 5 1/4. So again, I'm going to line up on the horizontal line down at the bottom, and then the vertical line on my left, and I'm going to cut the edges of the paper, not the fold. I have surprisingly not done that, but I probably will one day when I'm not paying attention. Alright, so again, just going to make sure everything's straight. I'm straight way up at the top, straight way at the bottom, and now I'm just going to cut. And you don't have to cut it off at all. You don't have to make the thing straight. For the purposes of this book, and some of the other books that I've done too, it honestly just depends on if I straighten the edges or not. I usually straighten the top and the bottom because that bothers me. Personally, if you like it, you know, more power to you. but see, it slipped. Don't slip. Okay, you're fine. But the edges, you know, sometimes they bother me. Sometimes they don't. I think, again, for the purposes of this book, I do want the edges to be flush, like a real book. Or a production book, like a book, a normal book. Let's go with that, a normal book. Okay, I think I'm almost through. Yeah, catching just a little bit at the top. Okay, here we go. And I'm free. Oh boy. Alright, so now, look at this guy. All nice and straight. Oh, that does my OCD some good. Alright, well, I'm just going to continue on the ugly mat here. Because like I said, it did take some doings to actually get ugly mat in here. Okay. So, now I have 3 signatures of approximately all the same size. I mean, there are some variations. It's not exactly perfect, but I mean, this is handmade with a craft knife and a bone folder. I think it's pretty good. Alright, so now I'm just going to put these to the side for a minute because now we get to work on, what did I do with it in the great move? Now we get to work on, not the book, the spine. Yay! Okay, so the good news about doing this is that nobody's going to see the back, which means that you can draw all over it and nobody's going to see it. So that's going to make it easy for punching the holes. So that's what I'm going to do now. So on the back of this particular piece, it's got that shiny material. So I'm going to use a good old Walmart pen and ink permanent marker to make my marks on here to figure out where I'm going to punch the holes. So first things first, figure out where the center is. So according to my very fancy dollar store ruler, this thing ended up being just a little under 1.25 inches. So that means that I need to do public math. Or if you don't want to do public math, what you can do is you can cheat it, which is what I'm doing right now. So what I've done is I've guessed about where the center is, and I put my 1 here. And then I find the half mark, which is here. And then I just kind of split the difference. Yep. So actually right here is my center, width-wise. And I'm going to do the same thing over here. Sometimes adding and subtracting fractions are a bit much. Can be additionally daunting when you are filming yourself and you didn't do any kind of measurements prior to figure out what's right. You just decide to do it on camera. Yeah, can be. Alright, so that's going to be my center line, and I'm going to go ahead and make a mark all the way down. Am I still all the way on camera? I am now. Okay. I'm going to make a mark all the way down. Does that still look even? Looks pretty even to me. Let's see. You can always adjust it. It doesn't matter because once again, nobody's going to see this back part because this is the part that's going to be glued down. Let's see if it's about centered. So I got 1 and wow, look at that. Yeah, it's a little bit off, but I don't think anybody's going to mind that. Alright, so next thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to find the actual center going vertically of the spine. So what do we have here? We have, again, 7 1/4. So that would be what? 3 1/2 plus 1/8. So 3 5/8. Okay. So I'm going to come up here and I'm going to find where the center is, which is going to be 3 5/8. That's a half. That's 5/8 right here, so this is my center mark. And now on either side of this, some people say come down 1/2 inch for your top and the bottom. I personally like 5/8 a little bit better, and that's probably because I normally use like wonky shaped pieces, but this is about where a 5/8 is right here, so I'm going to go ahead and mark that. Can you eyeball this? You absolutely can. It makes me feel better when I measure it for some reason. I don't know. So I measure it, and especially on this because, like I said, nobody's going to see it anyway. Alright, so right here. Why don't I measure it on the line so I'm not trying to draw it across? That's silly. Okay. So that was my original mark when I was just trying to find the center of it. So here I am. I'm going to go 1, that's 1/2 inch. But, okay, I was actually really close to 5/8 to begin with. Right there. Okay. Alright, so now the left and right limits. I'm just going to put this here. And I know I need to bring this down a little bit closer so I can see. Okay. So I think for this one I have a little over 1/2 inch to mess with. So I think I'm just going to go right about here. I don't know what measurement that is, but that looks fairly decent. Actually, I might move it over just a little bit. Yeah, I like that a little bit better. So this mark is about here. And again, there's absolutely no need to be exact with this, but I do like it when things are at least even-ish. And I'm going to do this mark over here. And again, I'm just going to draw the lines so I can figure out where to put the middle piece, the center hole, the left and right center holes. Zoop. And then gonna zoop this guy too. This is the one that I marked twice, so I'm just trying to get it even-ish. Zoop. Okay. Now all I have to do is come over with this one and put my mark here, and then come over here and put my mark here. Alright, cool. Next we get to punch holes. Alright, so I'm taking my Crocodile Big Bite 2, hold it this way, you'll see that I have it on the 1/8 inch hole up here at the top, which means the skinny one comes down and does chompies. Alright, I'm gonna see if I can do it to the side. Alright, so what I'm gonna do is I'm going to press this down just a little bit and try to align this hole punch. Can you see that? Align this hole punch right where I drew that circle. And then I go boop. There we go. Alright, so I'm just going to do this to the side real quick because it is actually really hard to do it the way I just did it. Oh, there's also a really cool feature on the Crocodile Big Bite. I don't know if you guys have noticed, there's this little slidey thing down here at the bottom. And there are 3 different rulers in here. There's one for the 3/16, one for the setting, and then one for the 1/8. And actually I'm going to turn it over here. And if you figure out how deep you want something to punch, or something punched, like for instance this, you can move this up to help you guide it to where you want it punched. So everything that you punch straight across would be the same. So actually can I try that? So I can get it the same size on the other one. So what I'm doing is I'm just putting this in right where my hole was punched to begin with, and I'm moving this up. Moving this, the guide. Moving the guide up. But I don't think you could do it from 5/8. We'll do it from the center. Yeah, I'll show you from the center. All right, let me move this out of the way. All right, let's go ahead and punch these 3 holes here at the top or bottom. I don't know which is which at this point. I should probably mark it. Okay, 3 holes. And now let's do the center hole. So I'm going to try to put this, I think what did we say, 3 and 5/8. So I'm going to move this up to where I think 3 and 5/8 is approximately at, because it's actually kind of hard to see on here. That looks, maybe one more click. 3 and 5/8 right here. Can you see that? Yep. Okay. So I'm just going to check and see if that is actually the distance that I want. Actually, it's pretty perfect. So I've butted my piece up, and now I'm pressing this down, and you can see it's hitting right at 3 and 5/8. Okay. So now, if I only had 1 hole on here, I would know that I'm getting it not equal distance apart, but equal distance from the top and the bottom, because I'm using the guide. I don't always use the guide, but sometimes it's actually really helpful. Okay. I've got some incomplete punches here, but notice how straight that is, and actually you can really see on the other side how straight that is. Now the ones that I did myself, nah, they're fairly straight. This one could use, you know, a little bit of help, but, you know, all in all, not bad. Okay, so that's the crocodile punch. All right, next thing. Next thing is we need to sew our pages into the signature, but these pages need to have holes in them. So how am I going to mark this? All right, well, you know what? Since I'm already talking about, I don't know what the top and the bottom is. Let's make this the top. For what reason? Because I need to make something the top. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my handy dandy pencil, which is right here. Right, this cute. And this cute. I think I got it from Michael's or something. Maybe Hobby Lobby. Just had to have the flamingos. Don't know why, because I did. All right, so I always start from top to back. I have seen a lot of people who measure this, and they do it all at one time, but I think that's because they actually do better at punching holes than I do. So I like to measure it for each signature, and I'm starting from the back, and I'm just making tiny little tick marks on where I need to punch my holes. And I always go from the back to the front. I do it when I'm sewing the signatures in too. So, and what I'm doing is I'm just trying to make sure that the top and bottom is flush. Yep, okay, here we go. Zoop, zoop, and zoop. Yeah, I think folks have the hole punching down a little bit better than I do. But I do like that guide thing. I think that's really, really quite nifty. Okay, got the top and the bottom in. Alright, so this is going to be the first signature in the book. Alright, so now, I'm going to punch holes. And I'll just show you guys on one of these how to punch the holes. So, and then I'll just do the other 2 off camera real quick and come back. So what I like to do is I like to, and I'm holding this to try to keep everybody together, I like to bend it slightly back on itself because it makes a better trough, for lack of word, to get the hole punch in. And I still have this set on 1/8, but I am going to move this guide back out of the way so I can actually fit this in here and don't have to fight with the guide. And what I'm going to do is basically the same thing. And I'll try to show you from the side, but I'm going to have to turn it to actually punch it. What I'm doing is I am going to punch just a little to the right, or actually on the very end of where I made my mark, because I want the hole to be right at the fold line. Alright, so that's what I'm doing. Get all my papers all together. I've seen a lot of people also use paper clips or binder clips to hold everything together. I haven't really found that that works very well for me, so I have not done that, or I do not do that regularly. I did try it, just doesn't work out very well. Alright, and since I'm having to turn this paper around to actually get it to go into the crocodile, it is the crocodile big bite, but sometimes the bite just isn't big enough. Alright, and I'll just do this last hole on here. There we go, everybody's all together. Last hole, and then I'm going to put the camera on pause and I'll do the other ones off camera. There we go. 3 holes. So this is going to be my first signature, so I'm actually going to turn it over like this so I can make a pile of done things. Alright, hang on just a second, I'll be right back. Okay, I'm back. So, all my signatures have holes punched in them. Now it's time to sew. Alright, what I have selected is, this is some baker's twine, and I have coffee dyed it. This used to be very, very white. It's not anymore. Actually, here. There. It's not anymore. Ha! Alright, so I'm going to take a very large-eyed, also very blunt needle, because I am very klutzy, and just going to thread this in here. I have seen other people who go ahead and cut the lengths that they want from the thread that they're using, or whatever binding material that they're using, but I don't. I just thread it on here like this. Number one, because I'm a little lazy and I don't want to rethread my needle, but number two, I can save on the binding material as well, because if I measure it out, it feels like I'm just wasting a lot of it. But if you do want to go ahead and measure it out and cut it, you want about 3 times the height of your paper. So I would go 1, 2, and then 3, and then cut it right here, and that would be enough to sew it. But like I said, I don't do that. So I thought that we would try something different. I honestly don't know how it's going to turn out. So normally when I bind books, I bind them like this in the middle, on the inside of the signature, so the thread's hanging out this way. But I figured if I did it the other way around, which is going to be very confusing for my brain, when I glue this in here, it'll just be the nice outside part on the inside of the signature. So I'm going to try to sew it the other way. I don't know if I explained that very well. It makes sense in my mind. Okay. Alright, so normally when I'm sewing, I start, and this is just a 3-hole pamphlet stitch, I normally start here. But since I want it to go the other way, I'm going to start here. So wherever you start is where you're going to end. And what I mean by that is, if I start going this way, my thread's going to be here. My ending thread is going to be here, which means that when I tie a knot, it's going to be on this side. Now if I went this way, it would look like the book that I just showed you, where the strings are coming out this way, like the end pieces, and you could tie them off, or, you know, put a charm down on the bottom or whatever. So I'm going to go this way and see how it works. It may or may not work. I'm not exactly sure if it's going to lay down properly or not once I get everything in here, but we'll see. We'll see. Okay. So I went up from the back through to the middle, and then I went to the top. You could also go down to the bottom. It doesn't matter. Go to one end, come back in through the top, and then come out at the back. And now I'm going to go all the way down to the bottom, and I'm going to go through our cardboard spine that we made, and then I'm going to go through the paper, and then I'm going to pull this through. So now, there we go. So now I have one long piece in the back, and then a half a piece in the inside. And now here's the part. There's only 2 important parts to this. When I'm making this ending stitch, I want to make sure that I'm not splitting any of the thread that's already there, which means if I'm taking my needle and going like, this doesn't even want to do it, and that's also why I use a blunt one, going through the thread like this, because when you pull it, it's not going to pull nicely. Alright, so here we go. I'm through, and I'm going to, see, that looks really, really nice. And I'm going to check the back, and actually this is how I tie it anyway. So this is the part where I kind of readjust how much thread I have on the ending piece. Like, this piece is way too long, so I can just back this portion out like that, because I want about, I don't know, 5 to 6 inches to be able to tie. And then I'll just pull this down like this. There we go. And now that's nice and straight. And then I will cut it off right here at this 5 to 6 inch mark. And I didn't bring any scissors over here with me because, I don't know, I thought I grabbed everything, but I never grab everything. Alright, I'm going to cut it off here, and I get the dullest pair of scissors. Perfect. Okay. Alright, so now what I want to make sure that I do is that I have my spine straight or flush with the pages that I created. And then I'm going to take one of these end pieces and I'm going to put it on one side, and I'm going to take the other end piece and put it on the other side. And I'm going to pull tight, not so tight that the pages rip, but tight to give a good secure binding. And then I'm just going to make some knots in here, and I'm going to hopefully make a square knot, which one way is always easier than the other. So I'm just going to do that, and I will cut off these little, actually I'm going to use these scissors, they'll probably cut better, even though they are pinking shears. Now normally I'll leave this longer, but since this is going to the back anyway, I'm not. Okay, so next one. I said that I don't want to have to thread my thread over and over again, which is why I leave it long, but I just realized that's not true because I still have to thread my needle over and over again. Thread my needle over and over again. It's fine. That's also why I use a large-eyed needle, because it's pretty easy. Alright, let's do this reverse. I'm calling it reverse binding because it's reverse from what I normally do. Okay, in through the middle, in through the middle. Wow, that never works. And I'm going to go through the top and the top. Also, when you're doing this, make sure, especially if you have more than, or only, I suppose, if you have more than one signature in your book, that you're actually staying in whatever signature you're supposed to be staying in. And what I mean by that is that you're not accidentally working on the middle signature and you're over here on one hole or the other, because I have definitely done that before, which is normally why I check before I actually tie it down, because it's really easy to back out at that point and just try again. And again, when I come in through the same hole, I'm making sure that I'm not bisecting my thread. Okay, here we go. That's not bad. And I'll do the same thing again where I flip it to the center. So I have this center piece like this. I have my center, get out of the way, book, you're in my way. Okay, so I have my centerpiece here, and I'm going to try to make sure that my pages are aligning, not only with the cardboard now, but also with the other signature that we have in here, the first signature that we sewed. And I'll do the same thing. This one I didn't have too much excess, so I'm probably just going to leave that. So I'm going to pull it tight, but not so tight that it rips. I'm just going to realign it just a little bit before I tie it down. I have one string on one side of this long piece going from top to bottom, and I have one string on the other side. And I'm going to cut off my strings to be a little bit smaller length that I can work with. And I'm just going to make a knot over here. This, and then I'm going to go around this way. This is the hard one for me. My brain doesn't like to go that way. There we go. And just cut it off. Alright, last one. Boop. Alright, rethread my thread real quick. Getting like expert level on this rethreading the thread. And I'll even do it on camera. See, this is where I'm going to be not expert level at threading the needle on the camera. Alright, so this one is wanting to split on me, of course, because I'm doing it on camera. That's how it goes. And I'm going to just try to coax it through. Ooh, it worked. Okay, sweet. Alright, so here's the top. Last signature. Okay, I just pressed that down a little bit to get it to act right. Last signature, here we go. Gonna start at the back side in the center, right here. There we go, back side in the center. I'm gonna go, actually I'm gonna take off this little extra piece of paper that didn't get cut very well. Through the top, like so, down to the bottom, like so. Yep. And then back through the center, careful to not bisect the thread. And then you just zoop it in there. That's right, you gotta zoop it in there. Again, I'm turning it so that the center is down at the bottom, the center of the signature. And actually I do have a lot left on this one, so I'm just gonna try to back this off a little bit. Needle, I don't need you anymore. Please get off. Thank you. You have served. You've done your job very well. I appreciate you, needle, but now you're in my way. Okay, here we go. All right, this is much better for me to work with. I'm going to cut off some of this excess. I'll put that to the side. Once again, I have, well, now I have this little tail trying to get in my way. Get over there, little tail trying to get in my way. So once again, I have one thread on one side. I have the one that's going up and down, and then I have the other thread on the other side, completely different sides. I feel like I'm going to do a magic trick now, but I guess I am. I'm going to magically make a book. Alright, I'm just making sure everything's aligned. I'm going to pull it down a little tight, not so tight that the paper tears. Okay. And then I'm going to make 2 knots. I'm going to go left over right, I guess is what I'm doing. And then I'm going to go right over left, or maybe it was the other way around. Right over left, left over right. See? I can't talk and do this at the same time. Literally can't. This is the hardest thing for me. But I guess the good news is since this will be smushed down with some glue, that should give a pretty good hold regardless. Okay, so now I have my little things in the back. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to put this spine portion on my counter. And I'm going to squish the pages down in. I've heard some people refer to this as training the pages. I don't know if this actually helps or not. It makes me feel like it helps, so I do it. There. Okay, so this is what we have. Look at our lovely little book. Isn't it so pretty? Wouldn't you want to read this guy? No. Yeah, me neither. It still looks a little ugly. Alright, so the last thing, guys, this is the last thing we have to do, is we have to glue this guy into here. And then we're all done. Alright. So what I have is I have some Fabri-Tac, which works really well on this particular project because we're trying to glue paper to fabric, which not all glues will. So I cut my glue tip a little bit too much, so now I have to masking tape the top of it, but it's working. It wasn't coming out fast enough because I didn't make a big enough hole, and I was like, oh, I'll just cut it down a little bit more, and then I cut it down too much. Whoops. Okay, so I'm going to put quite a bit of glue on here, especially on the sides and on the bottom. So I guess having this large hole in my glue is actually going to help. I guess for this particular project, I'm going to make sure that the little strings of my signatures are inside, and there might be a little bit of overrun on this glue, but this is the only thing that's going to hold this in the actual cover itself. So I'm just kind of squishing these ties around a little bit with the end of my glue bottle here. All right, and I definitely need to turn this up or I'm going to have glue everywhere. Okay, so now it honestly doesn't matter which is the top and which is the bottom. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to try to place this and have about an equal distance between the top and the bottom. And you may not be able to see this. And I'll try to move my fat head out of the way in just a second. And I'll just squish this down just a little bit. Okay. So here's the really boring part. You do have to hold it for a little bit. And I did do a pretty good job. I could get this to come up just a little bit. And what I'm looking at is I'm looking at when the book is open, if my pages are covering up the majority of the paper that's on the inside of the cover on the top and bottom, and actually it is covering it up very well. So what I'm going to do, because this is going to be super boring, is I'm going to hold this for about 3 to 5 minutes, and I'm going to put some fairly decent pressure on this with my hands just to give the glue a chance to hold and keep it down. And then I'll come back and I'll show you the finished project. All right, hang on. Hey folks, it's not quite done yet, but I just wanted to show you how I'm gauging if it's done or not. You see how this is pulling up from this book? I can push it down in a little bit, so I need to hold it a little bit more. But it is starting to adhere very nicely. And also what I've done is I have grabbed the cutting block from my die cut machine, and I'm using this to press down in the center to kind of get a more even distribution, especially on the ends. So hang on, I'll be back. So it's been about 8 minutes now, and it's not completely dry just yet, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to let it dry overnight, and I'm just going to stack some heavy things on the top of the middle signature here just to kind of press it down so it finishes. But I did want to show you real quick what it ended up looking like. So here's our book, and it has a fuzz on it. Okay, here's our book, and the pages are fairly straight. There is some slight variation in the width of the pages, but it's not too bad. And the top and the bottom are fairly flush. And here is our 3 signature journal. That's it, guys. Hope you enjoyed it. Hope you make some books of your own. See you next time. Bye.